Hey guys, I want to welcome you to the weekly Wednesday for the Financial Freedom newsletter, where every week, every Wednesday, we delve into something inspirational, motivational, something excerpt taken from the Financial Freedom weekly newsletter. Wherever you are, if you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, Google, be sure to click the like, subscribe, share, comment. And without ado, let's get into the show. Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we talk about 4 types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And so today's conversation is all going to be about health. And we're going to talk with Alan Thomas about unleashing human potential through weight loss. What's interesting is that Alan's, he's gone through this tremendous journey. He's got a fantastic story to share, and we'll talk about the benefits of weight loss and all of the health benefits. So, Alan, welcome.
Thank you so much. And I've got my my partner in the business with me, my wife Angie, too.
Hi, Chris.
Hello. Just for the listeners and audience, there's some connection issues because of and so just that's why we're on audio. And there may be some delay. But thanks for the audience for listening. But Alan, tell us about your story, your journey, and we'll go from there.
No, that sounds good, Christopher. And thank you for having us both here. And really, my journey was, and Angie's as well, was me personally. Angie and I have been married for now almost 37 years. Really, from the time out of college, just kind of starting to go up in weight gradually and doing dozens and dozens and dozens of diets, really without any real long-term or even temporary success with it, and which ultimately culminated when I was 55, and that was 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago now. I was 55. And I stepped on the scale and I saw something I never thought I would see in my wildest nightmares. And that was the number 3 at the beginning of my scale. And I was 304 pounds on March 2nd, 2017. And as standing there on that scale, I realized it was actually the day after Angie's and my 31st wedding anniversary. We have 4 children. Our youngest at the time was 15 years old, and our only daughter, and then we have 3 sons. They're older. But standing on that scale, I really realized I had been in the life insurance business as an agent and a manager and a trainer for over a decade, and I realized that I'd never met a man that was over the age of 65. Now, I was only 55 at the time. But I could not remember one man that I'd met that was over 65 years old that was more than 100 pounds overweight. And at 5'11", I was way over 100 pounds overweight. And so it really just dawned on me that while health is such a very important reason, we're all really tuned into the fact that if we become morbidly obese or seriously overweight, that our health is going to be impacted, but it never seems to be enough to move the needle. And for me, standing there, I just realized that, my wife, Angie, who was, I married way up. You can't see us on video. We're having connection issues on our little island here in Florida where we live. So, but I married way up, and I realized that she would likely be married to somebody else because I'd be dead. My kids would be calling somebody else dad. All the dreams, hopes, desires, and things that I had always planned to do would be thwarted because I couldn't put down the fork. And it led me on a very public weight loss journey where I committed to reach 175 pounds by November 23rd, 2020. And I didn't reach it on that day. I reached it 5 days early. And it was 260 days of 129 pounds. But it wasn't really that. It was really the fact that I always knew what to do. I always knew what to do, but not all, because it's not that complicated. I know people have issues and things, but we always think it's the strategy that stops us from losing weight. But what it impacted in our lives because of taking that that step was pretty incredible. And in health, certainly. I mean, Angie and I, we biked almost 15 miles this morning before getting on here. Normally we do 20, but we run out of time. And so I'm 61. Angie's way younger than me, even though we met in college. So, but at the end of the day, it really became a mission of ours. And, Angie came along for the ride too. And what was interesting, while I was publicly losing this weight, Angie and I do everything together. And as we're on the podcast together, and she was not too thrilled with it, I can tell you, because she felt like she would be kind of singled out. And when she went to our physician's office for checkup, she wouldn't even let them weigh her because she knew she wasn't as big as I was. But you may want to tell some of that story, Angie. So
no, I would just say I'm not obese and I'm not skinny. I'm, in the middle, and they would look at me like I was crazy and say, the doctor really wants a leg. And I'd be like, he could ask me about it. And they never did. So I was able to always get away with it, even though they really looked like they could shoot me sometimes. But I was very firm. I was not going to weigh, because I had not weighed here at home in several years.
And she was of this belief that nobody knew what she weighed. And I said, sweetie, I love you at whatever size. I'm attracted to you, whatever size you are, whether you're thin or whether you're overweight or whatever, but I know what you weigh. And she said, there's no way you know what I weigh. And I said, I can guess your weight within 10 pounds. Life insurance agents have that ability to size people up because we do it all day. And so
I was being kind when he said 10 pounds.
She said, there's no way you'll guess my weight. I haven't told you what I weighed in the last 5 years. And I said, well, you weigh 86 pounds. And she's 5'7", and I didn't miss it by 10. I only missed it by 2. She weighed 188 pounds. And she realized that she'd been lying to herself about that people didn't know, that it was something we could hide, that it was something but it's like the emperor with no clothes. And so she went on the journey with me, and she dropped, it's amazing, the weight that she'd not been able to get off since our daughter, who was now 15, post-pregnancy weight, it all of a sudden became not just important for her, it became extremely urgent. And she dropped 63 pounds in 190 days. Uh-huh. And so together, and so it was never the diet. It was always the decision. In fact, the clients we work with in our workshop, you never tell them exactly what to eat. Of course, we'll give them some tools so they can create it themselves and that kind of thing. And we'll never tell them what exercise to do, because we've never found that to be the limitation. In a first world country, it's amazing how people can figure it out. It's all the other things that we're missing that is our core belief. And it's just so funny. I was on the phone with the client who the other day, who was with us about 2 years ago, and he started with us at 452 pounds, 5'11", about my height. And he had suffered an injury, and he'd let his belief be that he couldn't lose weight, he couldn't do anything, and he'd never been on a diet in his life, not one. He was to the point with his weight where it was affecting his relationships, it was affecting his work, it was affecting his mobility. I mean, and he knew that if he didn't change, he was on a clock. He was playing beat the clock with his life. And but when we started working together in our workshop, during one of our calls, he said, "But I don't know what to eat, Alan." And I asked him a really simple question. I said, if your wife and your 2 daughters' life was on the line, because I know you'd do anything for them, I said, what would you do if they were on, their life was on the line, and the only way you could get them back safe and sound was to lose 1 pound in the next 7 days? And he was, as I said, over 200 pounds overweight, well over 200 pounds overweight, never been on a diet, said he didn't know what to eat. And he thought for about 30 seconds with me, and he said, I guess I could eat less. And I said, that's where you start. And it was interesting. We applied the principles that we teach in our workshop with him. And now the other day I reached out to him because he dropped below 300 for the first time in decades. and he's in the 290s. But if you'd ask this gentleman right now what the chances of him not reaching his ideal weight that he feels the best at of 190, he would tell you to just watch him. And so, because it's a marathon, it's no joke, and people lose at different times. But what's so interesting is he came out of that wheelchair. Now, this is where I think for the people listening that say, well, I do know what to eat, but it's this, and they have all these different things going on, and it's not really affecting me anywhere but my health. And I definitely get that health is hugely important. If we don't have our health, we have nothing.
Yeah.
But this individual, he started handling the way we recommend. I wanted him to own his diet. I didn't need to own it. I knew what to eat. But if he didn't own it, it would never work. I didn't know he was in a wheelchair, by the way, if he had to walk more than 10 feet. But I needed him to own, if exercise was possible, that he owned it, not me. Because if he doesn't own it, it's not going to do any good. It'll just go right back. And it was so interesting as the weight came down. He's an executive with a very large hotel chain. His business got better at work. Now he's still losing weight. He's still obese. But he's coming down. And he continued. He won an award with his company that's only given to people in sales because he was one of the top sales leaders. But he's not even in the sales department. Children are looking at him as differently than they've ever looked at him before. In fact, his daughter, one of the reasons we were talking, his daughter was in a horrific accident. And by the way, he does 8 to 10 miles almost every day. I believe every day. He videos it a lot of times and sends me the video. It's just pretty interesting. But he's not using a wheelchair. And so what's so interesting is his daughter, who is in a horrific accident, she's going to have to learn how to walk again. And because of the way he faced his weight, because of the way he faced that, he said to me, he said, Alan, he said, I can show her how. I can show her how by my example, because I was in it. Well, his wasn't based, his not being able to walk was based on his obesity, not the accident he'd had. It was his daughter now is looking to him for inspiration. So when people believe that their weight doesn't affect other areas, it is the proverbial head in the sand. I didn't mean to. You asked a question, I gave you a 45-minute answer. Sorry about that.
Yeah. So, my question is, so weight loss. What do you think so you say it's not diet, it's decision. What do you mean by that?
Of course, you have to change what you eat. Of course, you have to. If exercise is a possibility, you have to do that. But one of the mantras that we have is that there's always there's always a way for the committed, and there's always an excuse for those that are not. What I say is that you have to become an expert on you. My personal physician, who was a brilliant physician, he's really good at it. He could never tell me how to lose weight. He gave me a lot of suggestions. He gave me a lot of eating plans along the way. He told me for years and years and years and years, hey, you need to get that weight off. You need to get that weight off. But he'd never personally experienced what I'd experienced. And it was so interesting when he saw the journey that we were on, and he was just like, oh my gosh, what are you doing for exercise? And I said, well, you see me riding my bike. I ride. That's something fun to me. I mean, but we're not, serious bikers, you might say, but I guess we're getting more serious since we're up to about 20 miles a day riding. But I said, at the time I was riding what I could. And so we had this really revealing conversation where it was that, exercise is important to weight loss, no doubt. Nutrition is important to weight loss, there's no doubt. But without the decision to do it and the commitment to go the distance and create a different identity, none of that will ever matter. Because if I'm constantly believing that there's this magical diet out there to get me to my ideal weight, it becomes always like the carrot and the stick. It becomes just out of my reach. But when I'm internalize the fact that I've got to do it, that I have to figure it out. I'll give you another example of a client of ours that, and we give him tools and things to use to figure these things out. But he was about 3 weeks into our program, and he was losing weight, and he came to one of our calls, and he said, first thing out of his mouth was, Alan, you know what I have for breakfast? And I said, no, Chris, what did you have for breakfast? He said, I had apple pie. I said, good for you. He said, I said, you figured it out, didn't you? He said, yeah. He said, I figured out that I couldn't have it yesterday. Yesterday was Easter and our family was celebrating together and we were doing all these things together. And I wanted that apple pie, but I knew that based on my numbers, that if I had it, it was going to throw me out of whack. And he said, I said, I was determined to figure out a way to have a piece of this apple pie. The guy loves apple pie. What can I say? And he says, so I figured out a way to have a small piece this morning and it didn't throw me out. I mean, it sounds so elementary. I mean, it really does. But we think that it's like money. I mean, if we treated our physical bodies the way we treat our finances, or if we treat our finances the way we treat our physical bodies, there'd be a lot more bankrupt people. But when we put the emphasis on it, it's simple. It's like, are finances really that complicated, Christopher? I mean, you're the expert in that area. Are they really that complicated?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think that because I coach a lot of doctors, and you know, if doctors can get through medical school, residency, and fellowship, I mean, finances are a piece of cake. But it's just figuring out the mindsets and the stories they have around money and saving, the various habits that get you there. So like I said, once doctors learn it, then they're good. But it's just kind of, they have to be introduced to it and kind of be taught to it because it's never been taught before.
But there's a lot of doctors that I'm assuming this, just like there's a lot of physicians that are obese. I mean, depending on the study you read, it's anywhere from 10 to 60% overweight or obese medical professionals. And so they know what to do. And it's just like with finances, I know there's strategy, obviously, they have to learn, but it's about going the distance, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And that's it it's like if I wake up and I'm Elon Musk, I don't know that I could spend all of his money, but I'm sure there's a way to do it if he didn't apply some sound principles to his finances. And it's no different with weight. And you know this way better than me because you're a trained physician. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a dietitian. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a physical fitness expert. Angie and I are just two people that failed miserably with our weight, and we know the way out. And it was in the nutrition side, the exercise side, it is important. I don't want to discount that. But we put all this time focusing on that, and we forget about the elements that help you go the distance. And that's really the key, is going the distance in making the decision. And when I say it's a decision, that's what I mean. Because if somebody gave me a diet, and I'd been on, Angie and I figured out one time it was somewhere over 60 diets that I've been on. Angie struggled with weight, but I really struggled. And so when I was doing those diets, I was always looking for why it wouldn't work for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, and what I was really saying was, I want to be able to eat what I want, whenever I want, and as much as I want. And that's not a prescription for success with your diet. It's kind of like money. If I want to spend as much as I want, whenever I want, and on whatever I want, well, that you're going to probably end up broke, I bet, or massively in debt and soon to be broke. I mean, you have to apply principles, but when realizes that, hey, if you want to, it's like a client of ours the other day I have met people that are over 65, by the way, that are over 100 pounds of weight since doing this work for the last several years. But it's interesting. One of our clients who's 71 years old, he walks with a walker. He's down a little over 100 pounds. He's the lowest he's been since the 1970s. He cannot exercise physically. I mean, he has conditions that you would understand as an orthopedic surgeon, but he started applying the principles with it. And essentially, the other day we were in an alumni group call because he's been through our workshop, and we still hold some consistency for alumni. And he was talking about not having pizza. And I'm like, we'll figure out a way to have pizza and make it work. We'll figure out a way. I said, there's a way to. I said, you can't eat the whole thing and you can't eat it every day, but there's a way that you can have it. I just have a core belief that all food is good at some level. Now, I know there's food that are better than other, and I do that, Angie and I are Christians, and from a Christian perspective, I believe that Jesus declared all food good. He just did not say eat it all once. And we get this belief that we can eat everything we want and it's not going to affect us, and it does, as you know, as a physician, way better than I do.
It's been a fascinating conversation. How can people follow you, visit your website, and check you out?
Angie and I have created something for your audience, and we have a free training that we've created. They can go to transform/freedom. That's transformmyfuture.com/freedom, and they can go to that, and they can watch an absolutely free training that we do. It's a 5-step strategy that we use to help our clients lose 25, 50, or more than 100 pounds of weight, even if they travel, work from home, or whatever their situation is. And so they can go to that site, they can register for that. That training is completely free. And we've had people contact us that have lost quite a bit of weight that just watch that training. There's nothing to buy on it. There's nothing at all. It's totally free, but we want to do that as a gift for your audience. And that really, if they struggle, whether they struggle with 10 pounds or whether they struggle 310 pounds extra, I believe it'll serve them. And so hope that helps your audience in a way that we can give back to them, because I know as a medical professional, if you struggle with your weight, it's an extra layer of shame. And I don't mean this to shame anybody, but I know that they have, being somebody that had a lot of weight to lose, when you have that training and you know that you should be the other way, it does. And because I've talked to a lot of medical professionals that have struggled with their weight, and they have a layer of shame that most people don't have. So we want to do that to serve them and really give something back. So tell them to jump on that training, and hopefully that will serve them and give them some hope. Because believe me, if I can lose it, anybody can lose it. So at any rate, all right, Christopher, thank you so much for having us.
All right. Yeah. We were a pleasure talking to you. All of Alan's links or resources will be in the links and show notes. So thanks so much. It's been an interesting story and a journey, and we look forward to hearing about your future success.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Appreciate it. God bless.
I hope you really enjoyed that wonderful, inspirational, motivational piece. Again, wherever you are listening, if you liked it, be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. We're on everywhere: Spotify, iTunes, Google, Amazon, Audible. And without much ado, be sure to thank this show's sponsors, and we'll see you next week.